and welcome to The Ultimate here on ECS Network. This is part 2 of what is supposed to be a 6-part series as we try to discuss and figure out who is the ultimate NWA/WCW champion from 1981 to 2001. Again, we are joined by the 3-time former NWA Anarchy Heavyweight Champion, the unstoppable Shadow Jackson.
National champions.
Yes.
Believe that.
So,
I hate you.
we've got the disorderly Philip Payne, a.k.a. Marty Phillips, here with us. And joined by the eater of peaches, Don Matthews.
At least it wasn't grapes.
Well, Georgia's the peach state, so I had to go there, all right? So, this is bracket 2 of our tournament. Last week, we got the first 2 parts of our Elite 8 in the form of the Nature Boy Ric Flair and Diamond Dallas Page. We'll figure out who joins them this week. We start off with our first gimme, and the last gimme of the tournament, if I'm honest. But our first gimme, and we'll let Mr. Payne start with this one. It's the man called Sting against Vic Venom himself, the Archbishop of Talentberry, Vince Russo.
Well, it's just academic. I got Sting, submits Russo with the Scorpion Deathlock and a squash.
I would have said he submits Vince Russo with a handshake during the introductions.
Been the funniest tap out ever. Yes! Yes! For me,
You're not going to trap up Russo open.
no, I'm not gonna try to. You could, but no. Well, we talking about Crow Sting or?
Well, here's the thing. He's one of the most interesting parts of this whole discussion because Sting evolves during WCW's entire run. So, to you, what was the prime of Sting's career? Is it Surfer Sting?
Surfer Sting.
Or is it Crow Sting?
Surfer Sting. Now, here's the difference, though. This match can go 2 ways. With Surfer Sting, that match goes 15 minutes. Because
Okay.
Sting would do something to play around with him, and let Vince get something on him to cut him off,
Just so he could power
just so he could come back and do the legitimate finish. But if it's Crow Sting, it doesn't last a minute, not 1 minute.
He probably hit him with a ball bat.
It would be the Triple H match where they just at Survivor Series where they just did a circle around the ring. He hits him in the gut, drops him with the Scorpion Death Drop, and it's over.
Shadow.
Sting, headlock, takeover, submission.
I'm gonna ask a question here at this point because, and me and Shadow had this discussion briefly before everybody else showed up for taping. But Vince Russo tried to explain off himself and David Arquette as world champions. And I want to see if anybody buys this, because as I sat there and listened to it, I'm convinced Vince Russo, if you let him, if you didn't know exactly how full of shit he was up front.
Oh, we can cuss on this thing.
Yes, this is an explicit channel. If you knew exactly how full of it he was up front, if you didn't know that, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. First, his argument on David Arquette becoming world champion. Arquette never beat a wrestler. He pinned Eric Bischoff. And it was just a stipulation that whoever won the fall won the title. Does that make sense to anybody? No. Why was that stipulation on a tag match that didn't have a wrestler in it?
Mm-hmm.
That would have been my question. Okay.
Why was he in a match? Period. It would have been my question.
Right.
It's just these people who put themselves in. I can buy Vince McMahon being WWE champion when he won the belt. I can buy that because Vince McMahon's a specimen. You know, you could actually see him legit in the prime of his life going toe to toe with some of these people. I would have loved to see Vince trained as a wrestler from his 20s when he got to be about 32 and he was a bodybuilder. Hook up with San Martino. I think it would have been great.
I will say one of my favorite Ric Flair matches of all time is Flair McMahon.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, McMahon Austin. I mean, that's somebody you can believe in. Not only because he has a physique, but because, you know that's where his heart is.
He actually knows how to work.
But, you know, if Vince Russo's finishing move is the typewriter, where he tickles somebody to a submission, then sure. But I mean, there's no reason for this. None.
Here's Russo's excuse for Russo ever having been world champion. It was a fluke. He was in a match where the stipulation was you escape the cage, you win. He got speared through the cage. And that's the only reason he won. It was a complete fluke.
I wouldn't use the word fluke. I'd use the word garbage.
Yeah.
Because it diminishes
Yeah.
all these title reigns of all these people in these brackets who bled
Yeah.
and lived for this thing, and Lex Luger.
But
We'll get to him later.
By that time, though, WCW was a shell. It didn't matter. There was no history to anything they were doing. It was, man, we need somebody to hold this that might get us on the front page of a paper or a couple
Give it to
clips.
Karl Malone. At least he can throw a move, you know. Give it to Rodman. At least he can draw a crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing would have been is this in both cases. They should have never been in the match to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
How is someone like this in a match for the World Heavyweight title? It's, in the words of Kevin Sullivan, every once in a while, you know, you treat it like the Grail. It's the Holy Grail. You fight for it, you die for it, you bleed for it, you dream for it, and you don't put any stains on the Grail because one day you might have to put a nick in it.
Yep.
And so don't take a baseball bat to the Grail knowing one day you might have to just go, okay, we got to take one for the team.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now to our first legitimate contest of the week.
Yum.
Barry Windham against the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Done. To my knowledge, a match that didn't actually happen.
No, this match should have happened. Like, nah, even when he was the Widowmaker, this never happened.
I don't think so.
Man, God,
If it did, it might have happened on an
This
odd
is-
WWE house show.
this needs to be Googled. Because I don't know, man. Wyndham in his prime, I don't know. I'm probably have to give it to Savage, man. Savage was so over. Savage was his only
John
flaw. John Savage. I think the only
Randy in front of that.
I think the only true flaw that Randy had in his game was he had to call too much stuff in the back. Like everybody considers, you know, Savage Steamboat is to be one of the best, but if they didn't have 2 weeks of talking over it, then I don't think it would have been that great. Well, I think it would have been great, but it wouldn't have been what it was. But
Triple threat.
I don't think
I
that's
don't
an actual
know.
match. You're thinking Savage?
I'm kind of at a loss for words for this one because my heart says Wyndham, and the reason for that was, I mean, Wyndham was a horseman. Wyndham was, you know, that flying lariat out of nowhere. He could hit it anywhere. I mean, Savage has to set up the elbow.
I'll-
Savage can hit. Savage's speed. Excuse me. A lot of Pepsi. Savage's speed would have came into play with this, but you know, Barry was no nonsense. I mean, he's Blackjack Mulligan Jr. You know, the guy was bad. I don't know, man. I'm
Well, we'll come back and see if
come
you
back
come
to
with
me.
something.
Yes, y'all need to convince me.
Shadow?
Barry Windham, because Macho Man at the height of his powers was WWF champ.
Right.
By the time he was WCW champ,
Yes.
he was Macho Man with the shirt with the ripped sleeves and all that. He's still a bad guy. He can still go. His engine was running full. But Barry at that time was at the height of his powers as champ. You know, the only thing that derailed Barry Windham was backstage politics. Because as far as him holding the belt, you look at everybody he defended against, they were world-class athletes, and he excelled in the role as being the champ. So I think from a performance standpoint, a stature standpoint, because he was over Savage by a good almost 4 or 5 inches, if not more. Just at that time and at those points in those careers, I'll say Wyndham.
What do you got?
I got Barry loses to the Big Elbow in a classic.
Really? Why Savage going over?
It's too fast. He's just.
Barry Windham was not slow.
I didn't
man.
say he's not slow. I didn't say
Barry
he was
Windham
slow,
was
but
for his size was ridiculous.
So
I think Savage would take him in this.
I'm going to say on my bracket, I have Barry Windham. Because realistically, you're looking at Barry Windham was never WCW champion. This is Barry Windham as NWA champion after WCW left the NWA. So to me, this is not Barry Windham at his prime. His prime was when he was U.S. champion to Flair's world champion. That's Barry Windham at his all-time best. But this Barry Windham's not far off.
Right.
And this Barry Windham's facing the Two Cold Scorpios and the Great Mutas of the world night in and night out and having classics. And the Ric Flairs. Randy Savage is still an over-bad son of a gun, and he goes in and he's going to put in the classics with DDP and a number of others, and he's going to have some damn good programs. But the guys Savage is facing on a routine basis, they're over son of a guns, but this is not the Randy Savage that had the classic with Ricky Steamboat. It's not that Randy Savage anymore. Just like this is not the Barry Windham that worked with Luger and with Tully and with Flair. It's not that Barry Windham either. But this is the Barry Windham that's working the Great Mutas and working the Two Cold Scorpios and is defending the
Sting too.
Yeah, working the Stings, and he's defending the NWA World Title on Clash of the Champions and stealing the show. For what it's worth, on our right ends, we had Ken Wallace, noted referee in Georgia, and we had noted booker and manager, the Reverend Dan Wilson, and noted announcer, my predecessor in the Landmark Arena. He put Savage over, did Dan Wilson, whereas Ken Wallace put over Barry Windham. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer to this.
I don't think there is either. It
So-
just depends on how you look at it and where they're at, where you're at.
Right now we got 2 for Windham and 1 for Savage. Don?
I'm thinking, man, it's Barry Windham. I mean, I hate to put Randy Savage out in the first round, but Barry Windham at that time, and you know, the selling point was, you know, when he was WCW champion, Savage wasn't the same guy. He wasn't the one with Sensational Sherry. He wasn't the one working Steamboat. He wasn't the one running, doing the whole WrestleMania tournament and all that. He was the snap to a Slim Jim former commentator.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Barry Windham in his prime, definitely.
All right, so 3-1. We got Windham going over. Next up, and this is one that has caused some consternation with the people that have written in, and one that has actually turned some interesting questions on our end. So we have the man with the hands of stone, Ronnie Garvin, up against big sexy Kevin Nash. Here's your David and Goliath match. Marty, who you got?
Well, I got Garvin stuns the world. Sunset flip after hitting him with the hands of stone. Sunset flip, and it's over.
Sunset flip off a ladder.
Well, no, he sunset flips him over Kevin Nash. Pulls him up for the power bomb, pops him in the head, over the back, rolls him up.
Well, Marty's proven a decent finish guy, but so who you got?
I've got Ron Garvin, and just like I said last week, it's a lot of mine's going to be on who wrestles better. And if we're talking the Kevin Nash from the Diesel era where he beat Bob Backlund in 8 seconds, then you have him over Ron Garvin. But we're talking about the Kevin Nash who is
Knees too hard, tear quad.
Exactly. Yeah, duck 2, tear quad, and that's it. You know, we're talking about an older Kevin Nash, a more lazy Kevin Nash. Seriously.
Yeah.
Than what he was when he was working for Vince. Because when he got into guaranteed contracts and guaranteed this and guaranteed that, he didn't put on a show. Not like he used to be. Not like he used to be able to. Diesel and Shawn Michaels was a great match.
Right.
You know, but I don't see WCW's Kevin Nash beating Hands of Stone. I mean, I could even see in the match Nash dominating him and then taunting him, and it's over with.
Yeah.
I mean, if Ron Garvin can knock you out with one punch, he's going to land it.
Yeah.
Don't give him the
Especially against somebody who, like Marty said, duck two and tear a quad and it's over with. I don't see him happening. Plus, Garvin's moveset was 10 times more technical than Snake Eyes in a boot, you know?
Well, I have Garvin myself. My rationale behind Garvin was, if you look at it, it's probably two of the more tainted world champions of their respective eras. Garvin was a placeholder for Flair for a period of time, and they didn't even really let him have a program while he was champion. They did the whole, we're going to file an injunction to keep you from defending the title against anyone that's not Ric Flair. We're going to waive the 30-day rule so that his next big world title match would be Flair a few months later. So you have a champion that never really got to run against a champion that went under to a finger poke.
Mm-hmm.
And so of Doom. So between the two, the selling point to me for Garvin is, aside from the fact that Garvin might be, outside of Kurt Angle, who will show up later, and outside of Kurt Angle and Harley Race, might be the most legit bad man in the whole thing. And he had 2 knockdown drag-out classics with Flair. That, to me, was the tipping point. He can't talk. Garvin is not a great promo. But Garvin was that believable in the ring.
It would have been great if it had turned him heel and put him in the Dangerous Alliance. I'm just saying. Anybody with Paul Heyman.
What do you got, Shadow?
Y'all talked me out of it. I was all Nash at first. I was. Because I didn't see Garvin having enough of a service size as a champ to justify him going over. But you all made the point that when Nash had the belt, he wasn't Diesel. Whenever he did, all his glory in WCW was Hall and Nash.
Yeah, it's tag team.
Yeah, because Scott Hall did all the bumping and did all the show. And Kevin Nash got by on being the cool guy with the sayings and the too sweet and everything else, and the work rate of 0. Because like you said, with the contract, he just show up. And, he put himself in a 6-man, 8-man, whatever. So when you're putting it in that perspective, I have to go with Garvin, even though I didn't at first, because based on the era Garvin wrestled in, it wasn't his choice not to defend the belt. It was just how management said, all right, this is how it's best served. Whereas with Nash, he just didn't feel like it. So if you put that guy against the guy that really wants to do it, even though the height and the weights is in Nash's favor, like you said, he probably take a ton of heat and then duck 2, 1, 2, 3. So I go with Garvin.
To be fair, our right ends were split too. One of them said Garvin, one of them said Nash. So, all right, this one, as I look through, I want to say this was one of what I thought would be one of the coolest matches of the first round.
I want to see this match.
So there were about 3 or 4 matches that I looked at for the first round. I would pay money to see it.
This could main event any. This match could main event any big show anywhere ever.
We have the first ever undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Y2J Chris Jericho. We do count him winning the WCW title to unify it as the last WCW title switch against the former WCW International World's Heavyweight Champion, Ravishing Rick Rude. Don, you want to start this one off?
God almighty, how do you start a match that really should be a draw? Rick Rude, with his wind, his stamina, his god awful charisma. The guy wouldn't even have to talk to fill an arena.
When you say god awful, we're talking about in a very good way.
Yeah, in a very good way. Yeah, he's ridiculous. Man could. The very few times that he was a baby, he was over like Rover, and it was very short, but could switch like that, and everybody would hate him. I loved Rick Rude, but Chris Jericho's been in his prime since about 1995 to today, and that is the only reason I would put Chris Jericho over Rick Rude, because he's never. I've never seen him have a series of bad matches. He's always been one of the best matches on the card. He's always, and if we're talking shoot way, the way that Jericho could beat Rude, Jericho's quick. He's a total package of flying, catch as catch can, power. He's more he's stronger. He's very deceptively strong, and I think he'd be one of the first. If has anybody ever reversed the Rude Awakening?
I think Sting's done it once, and I think Steamboat's done it a couple times.
I think
not on a regular basis.
I think Jericho would hit a backstabber or a code breaker off of a Rude Awakening, and I really think the good finish would be not the Walls of Jericho, but the Lion Tamer on him, because
that was his deal. So yeah.
And I mean, if you hit him with a Lion Tamer, and then that high angle Boston Crab. The funny thing is, I would always play it off of Rude. Always bragged about his abs. It was always his selling point, and I would have Jericho, if we're booking it, and Jericho's even half of a heel, attack his abs and stretch him at the end and have Rude submit. But I think just all around, Jericho, he's been in his prime for 20 years. There's no way he loses.
I'll be honest. I forget who I wrote down as my guy. Jericho. That's where I was headed at the moment. I agree. Chris Jericho, because how do you have somebody like Chris Jericho who is at the top of his game, and he is so good at what he does that he's at the top of his game, he can leave, be gone for 4 years, come back, and never miss a beat. Now, that said, taking into consideration that this Chris Jericho that we're talking about has never had that time away, has never had to do any of that, this is Chris Jericho, fresh out of WCW, turned into a main event guy in the WWE.
Just beat Juventud.
Yeah. Yeah, see, which the Rock reminded us of. But the big thing to me, and the big selling point, and he just remembered the promo.
I just remember that.
I forgot about that.
But the
Rock, boy, oh my God.
But this is the Chris Jericho.
Hoopy juice.
Not just that he beats the Rock for the WCW title and drops it back. They trade it once during the Invasion angle. But this is the Chris Jericho that beats the Rock and Steve Austin in the same night.
In their prime.
Both in their prime.
That's a tall order.
There was so much confidence in him that they put him over both guys in one night, whereas with Rick Rude, I don't know that WCW ever had that level of confidence in Rick Rude. They put the international world title on him, but it almost felt at the time like they were placating Rude because they just had the 2 world titles put it on him. Rude should have been WCW champion at some point. If there was any justice in the world, he should have had that belt. But and he should have had the program with the Sting or the Vader or whatnot for the WCW title. It never happened. My memories of Rick Rude in WCW are as U.S. champion. And he had a hell of a program with Ron Simmons over the world title. But no, I said Jericho just because as good as Rude is, I think Jericho is just a little bit better. What do you got, Marty?
Well, you said it already. Jericho's too quick for him. He's got a hell of a moveset. He hits him with, as you said, not the Walls of Jericho, but the Lion Tamer.
What do we think, Shadow?
I'm going Rick Rude, and I think the difference would be Paulie Dangerson. Because Rick Rude had a manager at the time, and if you remember the feud he had with Steamboat was everything that you all say Jericho would be. But it was always that phone got slid in at opportune times.
And if it isn't Paulie, it is Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something we don't think about.
He had enough outside interference So unless it's you put it in a bubble and say managers, valets, cage, you got to include whoever's with them at the time.
Hey, come on. How about Jericho's personal security?
Didn't
Man, he didn't have Ralphus when he was
Didn't have
champion.
it at the time. You got to go with who at the time. 'Cause
He had Stephanie.
When I first saw the bracket, I remembered at the time he was part of the Dangerous Alliance. So you had any number of people jumping up on the rope and whenever. And even Jericho as a heel is one person. So based on that, if you put it in a bubble, I'd say Jericho, but it's not in the bubble. It's where they were at that time. I have to go Rick Rude.
That's actually a pretty good argument. Jericho never had a Paul Lee in his corner.
Not at that time.
I think I could be convinced to say Rude.
I'm not.
You're
I'm
not?
still saying
Jericho?
I'm still saying
I still got
Jericho.
Jericho.
Still say Jericho. Well, let's see what the.
What's 2-2 then? We have to go
It's
to
2-2, so we're gonna go to the other.
We got to go to the comments.
Yes, we're going to the comments. We got Rick Rude. So says the Reverend Dan Wilson. And Rick Rude. So says Ken Wallace. So y'all two got to be the tiebreakers on this one. Rick Rude goes over in a squeaker. All right.
Like I said, you got to just remember where they are at that time when they had the belts.
Yeah. And like you said, Paul Lee, if it wasn't Paul Lee, it was Medusa.
Yeah.
And both of them
or
were
even Austin.
Yeah.
Dangerous Alliance.
So, all right. Time to figure out who joins Flair and DDP in the Elite Eight. First off, we have the man called Sting against the Lone Wolf, Barry Windham. Shadow, kick us off.
Sting, the 30-minute classic. But it would be either a small package or a sunset flip.
Okay. What do you think, Don?
It wouldn't be a finish. It would be it'd be like he said, it'd be a roll up, and I agree, it'd be Sting, but Sting would take an ass kicking.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
He would take a beating from Barry Windham and then overcome. Absolutely.
I don't disagree. Sting's the franchise, and that for a very good reason. I think they would have a hellacious match. I think it would be a classic. And I agree. I don't think you would. You certainly don't have Barry tap out.
No.
So it's going to be a small package or a sunset flip or something similar. What do you got?
I didn't have this match on mine, but I will go with Sting on that because just Sting's too much for him. I think Sting's got him.
I don't think he's too much for Barry Windham. I just think that he can outlast him.
Well, most of the time when Sting did win his belts, it was very seldom with the Splash or the Scorpion. It was roll-ups. Most of the time, it was with a roll-up.
Well, it's kind of like Flair in the figure four. Flair said in many interviews at this point that his daughter finally figured out how to get the figure four to work because he never won a title with it. But said apparently all he needed to do was bridge.
Yep.
That's a whole other show about how much I'm in love with Charlotte Flair. That woman is awesome.
All right. And next up, and this should be interesting, it's the man with the hands of stone, Ronnie Garvin, against ravishing Rick Rude. Marty?
Well, this changes my whole shoot match up. So,
Call it in the ring.
yeah, I can call that in the ring. So,
Oh, don't worry, my bracket's screwed up at this point, too.
Garvin
So
and Rude.
you can see I had Jericho written down on
There
mine.
you go. Yeah.
Garvin and Rude. Okay.
Do we need to come back to you?
Come back.
I think this is a brawl. I think this brings out the ugly in Rick Rude, and I think Rick Rude wins. And I don't think it's because of outside interference. I would put Rude over Garvin strictly because Rick Rude was mean, he was brutal, and I'm trying to remember the adjective. He was very precise in what he did.
Calculating.
He was very calculating. Thank you.
Mhm.
One move led to the next, which led to the next, which led to the next, which led to the Rude Awakening, and it was over with. I think he's quick enough. I think he's got enough stamina, and he's got enough endurance in him to withstand the Hands of Stone and hook on the Rude Awakening and legit beat him 1, 2, 3 clean. With a finish. No roll up. No hooking the ropes. No nothing. No Medusa. No Paulie throwing a phone in. He hooks him with the Rude Awakening, drops him like a bad habit, and he goes to sleep. Tell me.
I think I will say this. I think it's Rude because I mean I'm looking at all these from a booking perspective. You know, that's what I was. Rude's a better promo. Rude has a better look. He's a better draw. I don't know that he's a better in-ring performer, but he is certainly more polished.
I would so debate that one.
That he is more. That Garvin is more polished than Rude.
No, that Rude was a better in-ring performer.
I think they had two different styles.
And you have two different styles all you want, but we're talking about who's a better in-ring performer. The guy we look at now, like AJ or Dusty Rhodes. They have two better styles. They have two different styles, but
it's for what each man does. For what Ronnie Garvin did, Ronnie Garvin was a hell of an in-ring performer, and I would put him on a par with Rick Rude, but I think Rude was more polished as a performer. You know, I don't think you can put the managers into it because if we're going to think about where they were at the time, Paul E. and the Dangerous Alliance, when Garvin beat Flair, Flair had JJ and the Horsemen. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a wash, but I don't think you can put Garvin over Rick Rude. I just don't.
I think if you want to see Garvin and Rick Rude, you watch any Garvin Flair match. I think Rick Rude would beat him half to death around the ring, however, as many times, and he'll hit that punch. But the difference will be Rude will take it and roll out the ring before he can get covered.
He'll take a Potter.
He'll get himself together. Garvin will lose it, push the ref, go to bring him in the ring. That's when it'll happen. It'll be something to where he gets cut off, Rude Awakening 1, 2, 3. He will get outsmarted, he will get outskilled, and he will get outworked. Because Garvin's moveset, to borrow what you've already said, is extremely limited when it comes to Rick Rude. Rick Rude's selling would outdo what Ronnie Garvin could do from the offensive standpoint. So he would take a beating, 10, 12 minutes, hit his punch, won't get the pin. His frustration will lead to him getting beat. He'll try to go for that punch again, and that's when
he gets the hook.
Yep.
I'll have to, with comments been said, I'll have to go with the Rude on this. I like what's been said. I think that's fair estimation.
And pretty much everybody has got Rude moving on, regardless of whether it was Garvin or Nash. So, alrighty. So that pretty quickly gets us to our next match in the Elite Eight, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. And it is a real-life match that happened on numerous occasions. It'll be the Man Called Sting against Ravishing Rick Rude. So, one of the matches that helped carry WCW through the early 90s. So,
we need to watch one of those.
Unfortunately, I do not have the network here. So,
BAM!
Brought it with me.
But someone did bring it with him. All right, folks. So, right now, we got the Nature Boy Ric Flair and DDP. We got Sting and Rick Rude. That's coming up here in about 3 weeks' time here on the ECS network. And let's see here. Next week, a little bit of preview, but the American Dream Dusty Rhodes is going to show up.
Yes, baby.
If you
can fall like a monkey if you will.
There's going to be an Olympic hero and at least a dragon. We'll let you figure out which one. So, until next time, folks.
Stan Hansen will not be spitting tobacco on people.
Dang it!
It won't happen.
That was my only gimmick.
I wasn't going to say nothing about that lariat. It's all right.
we got Merciless Don Matthews, Philip Payne, the Unstoppable Shadow Jackson. We'll see you next time. I'm Mike. We'll see you next time here on The Open.